welcome back to this channel. Now, this is a what if that I I find really interesting, and no one else has done this besides me. And I don't even think nobody has even thought to do this. This is what if Belle was basically like slash the reincarnation of Stain. Hmm. Yes. So basically, Deku will basically, I mean, Belle will basically be like half Stain, half Belle. Like Belle will still be nice, but you will notice a big difference in his personality and skill and just how he does things. But he'll still be Belle, if you know what I mean. Now we start off. What if Belle was like Stain? I'm just gonna do that one. What if Belle was like Stain, not the reincarnation? We start off with Belle as Belle. He's sitting down with his grandpa. No spoilers here. He's sitting down with he's sitting down with his grandpa as him and his grandpa are just reading books like The Hero Aladdin, The Fairy King, like the the hero and the princess. If you that's a story from the side manga. Anyway, and he just be reading these as his favorite one would always be Argonaut. Like his favorite hero would always be Argonaut. As Belle, he'd just be like, yeah, these are cool. Now I'm gonna say they have this. They have old generation heroes and new generation heroes. Now how it goes is the old generation heroes are like the one in the fairy tales. They are true. Now the new generation heroes are people who want to become heroes. Now being heroes does pay sort of well, and it was like something to create after the Astrea family left Orario. They decided to make something called Heroes. Now, if you don't know who the Astrea family is, this is a little spoiler, so I recommend you skipping I'm gonna say 30 seconds, starting in 3, 2, 1. The Astrea family was basically the police force in Orario. They were also reused original Familia and they kept the hand, but they left after their group was jumped. I just chill a little, cause I wasn't counting, so just chill a little. Okay, I'm guessing 30 seconds is up. As basically they started making these heroes, and these heroes basically, if you had to qualify for a hero, you had to be level 3 and higher, and your stats, and you just had to have a good track record. And basically, because crime Aurario is a little higher, just cause the Estrella family left, and there was more lowlifes in this version. And What If first changed things a lot. Like when I listen to What If Bells, the most thing that really aggravates me is when they make Hestia like evil. I'm like, God, Hestia isn't evil. Because I, for one, I like Hestia. And not like that way. I'm just saying I like her character. So it's like, I feel like she's that one piece person everybody needs. Anyway, basically, Belle would, you know, Belle would start seeing these new heroes as Zeus would be like, personally, like, ugh, sorry, there was a fly around me. Zeus would be like, personally, Belle, I like the old heroes. They were just realer. Now they call them new heroes. But as Belle would be like, new heroes suck. But there would be one new hero that Belle personally liked, and his name was Finn, also known as Braver. If you didn't know Finn's second name, it's Braver. Finn, also known as Braver, you know, captain of the Loki Familia, and Belle would be like Finn, he's a true hero, especially what he did during that one day against the evil group called Evilis and such. And Belle would be like, he may be the captain of a big familia, but Belle can just sense that Finn does what he does not for money. And at that point, Belle would start to say like he was Finn's greatest fan, because if you don't know, despite Finn's looks, Finn is 55. So sort of close to the All Might's age. So this sort of works good. As Bell, there would actually be an incident occurred where Bell would have his childhood best friend, as they'd be attacked on by just walking. They'd be walking and they'd be attacked by people who were trying to rob them. And the people were like crazy, so they'd say, okay, I'm gonna kill you now, kid. And while, doing that, a hero would appear, a new hero, as they'd be like, hey, leave those kids alone, as the dude would say, back off, like I'm level. It'd be like, yeah, new heroes would appear as it'd be like, back off, I'm level 4, you gotta look like you're level 3, as they'd be like, oh shoot, level 3 is, they'd say, I'm going away, and such, as Belle's childhood friend would die because the villains, but Belle would manage to run away, and eventually the villain would escape, and the villain would have. Oh my god. Sorry. Basically, the villain would have killed the girl by beating her to death in front of Deku, and he'd actually start beating Deku too. I mean, Belle. And Belle was around 4 years old at this time. And Belle starts to get a hatred for these heroes and such. And then basically Bell we time skip as Bell decides he should start training a little to protect people, as Bell starts doing push ups, not a lot, but to the point where he's 8 years old he has a 2 pack. Okay, basically like that. As he just trains. Now Bell doesn't really get along. I mean, Belle gets along, but Belle doesn't really, like talk to people. But there was this one dude called Alex who basically one day would there was this one dude called Alex, and the other kids would make fun of Belle for never playing with them, but Alex was also being made fun of, as Belle and Alex would actually get to know each other. Now again, villains would attack, but this time they would be from the group Evilis, as they were running away from Aurario, and they'd say that they needed food and shelter, and they were going to start killing people if they didn't do anything, and they'd pick up Belle, and Alan would throw a rock, as there would be nobody around and nobody would be doing anything, as Alan would just try to protect Belle, and a new hero would show up, and this new hero would actually be like his new hero would actually be like this girl called, her name is Strato Girl. Yes, from like her name, or from like The Incredibles and stuff. And she'd be like, "What are you guys doing? Put that down!" And there'd be a whole fight and such, and everybody would clear it. And the evilist would say, "It's what's gonna happen. You're going to choose, okay? You're going to choose between this boy or your life. If you choose the boy, I mean, if you choose the boy, we will end up. If you choose the boy, we'll leave this village alone and we'll just kill you. But if you choose yourself, we'll kill the boy and bomb this village." As the girl would say, "I choose myself. Please don't kill me." As Belle would be like, Belle starts screaming, "Why did you become a hero? You're supposed to protect people." As the girl would say, "Well, you think heroes are supposed to risk their lives? I'm not stupid like those childhood fairy tales you listen to, kid. I want to live." As the dude would say, you know, like bad. that dude would say, "You've made your choice." Out of anger, Bo would pick up a knife as he would rush. Bo would pick up a knife as he'd basically rush at the dude, as the dude was weak, and Bo would slit the man's throat. Now his partner was already like hurt, but Bo would slit the man's throat, as the girl would be like, "Hey kid, uh, uh, I didn't mean any of that," but Belle would go look. The way Belle basically while Belle was running, the man would have noticed some Belle and killed Alex. As Belle would be so angry, as he'd be like, "It's okay, kid. It was a worthy sacrifice." And out of anger, Belle would stab the girl in the stomach. As he'd start to twist the knife, pulling it, Belle would pick up Alexander and walk away as the hero would be dead, and it would just be confirmed that the two they killed each other. That the evilest hero and Belle killed the evilest. As now people would actually start to see Belle as a hero somewhat, but the kids would still avoid him. It's sort of like that one girl from Sword Art Online. It's been a while since I watched it, where she killed that one bank robber when she was young, and some people saw it as just murder, and other people saw it as she's just saved our lives like that. Now the kids would avoid him, but Bo would decide that this was far enough, and he needed to start training. Bo may not have had leveling, but he would go in the woods as he'd start to train. Bo would even make his own katana, and Bo would start spending less and less time with his grandfather. His grandfather would share him some tips just by watching, as his only excuse was, "I've seen many warriors in my day," and he just start training as Bo would like knives and swords, and Zeus, would be walking and such, as Bo would train and and such. And basically, Bo would be training as he'd get back one day. Getting back one day as his grandfather would be gone. Bo would be looking around like, what happened? He'd go to the village as he'd ask the village chief what happened. As the village chief would have said, "Your grandpa died," as they'd go looking for him. And eventually, Bo would be sad as Bo would decide to go to Rario. As Bo would pick up a sword. It was more of a katana, sort of like the one Stain has. And he'd pick up some knives that he had gotten. Bell's hands would be bandaged like the one in Stain's picture, and Belle would pick up something. Hmm. Should I do that? Belle would go, yeah. Belle would basically go to. Hmm. Wait, hold up. As basically Bro would go to a drawer as he'd get a white poncho. Now this poncho was his grandpa's. Basically, you see what Belle's wearing in the picture? That's what he would get, and he'd pick up an or. Yeah, I already explained that. And as he would just get ready and such, as he'd also just pick up a red scarf from his friend. He'd take a red scarf from his friend that one of his friends made, that one of the people made him, as Belle would basically start to go. And now Belle at this point was sort of like Stain, and Belle was extremely fast and smart and strong. Now Belle might not have had a level. Belle was equivalent to a level 2 at its prime. Okay, Belle is equivalent to a level 2 at its prime, and such as Belle was ready, and while walking, Belle would be Belle would basically had enough, And I did the time skip right. Bo would say that Bo at this point would already be convinced that new heroes were a plague, and these new heroes aren't, there shouldn't be new heroes. There should only be old heroes. And what he means by that is there should be allowed for new heroes to come, but there's a difference between new heroes and old heroes. Old heroes are actually true heroes, but new heroes are fake heroes. So if anybody should ever take up the name hero, they should be mentioned an old hero because they're a real hero. That was kind of hard to understand or explain, but I understood it. I hope you do too. And Bo would walk, as Bo would say, he had two things to do in Aurario: get stronger, and also he had two things to do in Aurario: get stronger and take down the new heroes. Now, killing, if I had to guess, killing isn't illegal in Aurario. You know, I'm pretty sure you can kill somebody, and people like the whatever police force won't go to your door. See, like this isn't a war. Like people can kill each other in the dungeon if they want. That's what I'm saying. Like this isn't modern time where like you're not allowed to kill. I'm pretty sure you can kill people. Okay, like Kind Synthesis was literally about to cut off Bell's arms and legs, and you get it. I'm pretty sure you can just kill people if you want, as long as it's not like on private property, like the guild or something, or in front of the dungeon. But you get it. You can basically kill people without consequences, basically. As Bell also wanted to get rid of the fake heroes and get stronger. As Bell would be walking, and Bell Belle would try to get into some familias and such, as no familia would let Belle in, and Belle would just be angry as he'd talk about letting his anger out. Now, Belle had actually remembered the name of the pro hero, I mean, the new hero that he saw a long time ago when he was with his friend, whose name I literally forgot. And the female friend, as basically Bo would actually spend the next 2 days tracking that hero down, as due to the lots of time he spent in the forest, Bo would be actually a good tracker, and Bell would basically track the hero down. As the hero, Bell would be on a rooftop as the hero would be exiting the red light district. As Bell would just scoff as he'd say, "So disgusting. Someone could be dying as he's having fun, inappropriate fun," he'd say, as basically the man would be walking and he'd be sort of drunk, as Bo would basically jump down as he'd land on the man's back as he'd jump off doing a front flip. The man would get up as he'd say, "What the heck? Kid, who are you?" He'd say, as Bo would say, "You don't remember me, huh?" He says he'd rush, pulling out his katana. He'd start swinging some attacks as like the hero would start to dodge and such, and he'd be like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! Don't you understand? I'm a new hero." As Bo would say, "You're not a hero at all." He'd say, as he'd throw something in the dude's leg. Ah, ah. Bo would say, you could have beaten me. You're level 4 now, aren't you? Well, you could have beaten me if you weren't drunk. Aren't you a hero? Shouldn't you be protecting people?" Bo would say as he kicked the dude. As the dude would say, I, I'm, I just wanted a break. Can't I have a break? From doing what? Abandoning kids to die? He'd say, as the dude would say, "What are you talking about?" As Bo would reveal his past, the dude would say, "You're the kid and the other kid?" As Bo would say, "Yes, that that freak, that that villain killed my best friend while you ran away because you weren't strong enough." Well, I'm not strong enough. I'm about to teach you a lesson that doesn't matter how weak you are. You should always try. He'd say as he'd rush at the dude. The dude would dodge, pulling out a staff, going at Deku as he'd start attacking. Now, Deku's training would be good as Deku would start jumping off the walls and he'd kick the dude's head into a wall before cutting his legs up as the dude was having trouble standing. Hey, kid, I'm sorry, okay? Like, how about we work out a deal? I'll pay you some money. As Bo would say, of course you would, as he would cut the dude's throat with his sword. He'd wipe the sword off, sheathing it as he'd start to run. The next day they'd be talking around the town. A local new hero had died. Now, no one really cared because, again, like, there's no consequences for killing in this world, or no big ones at least. You know, this isn't like modern. But anyway, no one really cared because he wasn't really that much of a good guy. So there are many, and they don't do investigations for this stuff. You know, like, hmm. Like, if you watch the side story Damichi Gaiden, you know that one episode where that girl kills the dude and they're investigating it. I don't think they're necessarily investigating it because she killed somebody. I think they're investigating it because she killed somebody in a hotel, so they were just uneasy about it, you know? Basically, for example, if you've watched the side anime, what were they going to do if they found the girl? Take her into custody? Where? Yeah, there are no prisons in this world. Anyway, let's continue. As Deku would start to hide, and Deku basically, when Deku goes on his killing spree, Deku, I don't know. Basically, when Deku goes on his killing spree, he wears his scarf under his, hmm, basically, Deku basically wears stains. Deku uses stains like the red scarf as a mask, and he uses this thing. Now the thing is flippable, which means it has a black and white side. So Bell just flips it anytime he goes into his vigilante mode, as like uh 2 weeks later, two more new heroes would be found dead, and such as people would be start to be like, oh, someone is killing these new heroes and such, as they'd be like, wow, like the guild was the guild would start investigating, as they'd be like, who's killing these heroes? Meanwhile, Bell would have just been kicked out of another familia, and he'd get up as he would shake the dirt off of his clothes and his bag, and he'd turn around as he'd see Goddess Hestia. Goddess Hestia would be like, hey, like, join my familia, she'd say. As Bo would be like, okay. He'd say as they'd go and they'd laugh and get to know each other. Now, Goddess Hestia would have to work the night carts at night. I mean, the potato cart at the night, as Bo would think it was a perfect opportunity. There was a pro hero called basically Square. Now there was a new hero called Square. Now this new hero was level 3. He was actually sort of up and coming, and he was actually sort of a nice guy now in the neighborhood, but it was just his greed and love of money. The dude didn't really donate to charity, and he just loved money. And he had, the dude like was normal, but he had a nice house all to himself and such. As basically this dude had a special skill. Now, basically, uh when you qualify to, oh my god. This is the slide I use for thumbnails I can't really use on the internet. For example, I have to copy and paste these two pictures on top of each other. It looks cool to me. Basically, when you classify for a hero, you get a special drop of something, and this is called the quirk drop. You get it? This is called the god's gene. And when you qualify to be a new hero, you basically get this thing called a god's gene, and it's basically just a special skill for you, just to help you. You know, you can still use your other skills, but you get it. As basically, this one's skill was wood, and he could basically turn his body to wood and use it. As Bo would be one would like just be watching, as he'd be like, the dude would be walking around and such, as he had just taken down a criminal. As Bo was having second thoughts, maybe he wasn't so bad. as as he'd be like, hmm, like, hey everybody, I just took down this criminal. As he'd start to say, as Belle would get angry, did he take down the criminal just so he could get recognized? And Belle would say all of his doubts were gone, and Belle would unsheath. Now Belle has two knives and that one katana. Alongside with that, Belle has a few shurikens. And Belle would just, you know, Bell would flip his poncho over and wear his scarf as the mask, and he'd jump as he'd be watching. As Bell would start to cry in the alleyway, and he'd be like, he'd just start to cry. Now the dude would hear, as the dude would be like, hey, are you okay? What's your problem? As Bell would say, my problem? It's heroes like you who do what they do for fame, he'd say as he'd pull back on his sword trying to cut. But this hero was kind of like fast. He was a level 3. As he'd be like, what the heck? Who are you? He'd say, as Bo would say, none of your business, he'd say. As the dude would fall down to one leg, he'd look at his stomach as his stomach was cut. Not cut open, but it was cut. Ugh. The man would say, as Bell would start to like grab the blood from the sword. As the man would say, I'll get you, as Bell would dodge, tripping the man over before kicking him in the face. Bell would throw a knife at the man, hitting it in the shoulder. The man would say, you're gonna pay for that, he'd say, Bell! Rushing at Bell, as Bell would throw the blood from the sword, as he would then stab the man in the chest. You should have been more focused on doing what's right than getting credit, he'd say. Hey, is everything alright? A man in a suit would say as he'd look in the alleyway. Oh my god, he'd say, I need to get help. As he'd start running, as Bell would throw a shuriken at the man's legs. Who are you? He'd say, as the man would say, I'm nobody. Bell would open his book, but Bell would stomp on the man's chest, restraining him. As he'd open a book, he'd look through it. Now, this was a personal book that Bell had made over the years of every new hero. As Bell would just be looking, as he'd basically see, you're the hero, so you were gonna leave your fellow hero behind? As he'd say, I needed to get help. I'm not strong enough to deal with someone like you. Oh shoot, I was kind of far away from my phone. I hope you guys heard me. But he'd say, I'm not strong enough to deal with someone like you, so I'm going to get help. As he'd say, yeah, whatever. Why did you become a new hero, he'd say. Because, because what? Because I want to protect people, he'd say. As Bell would say, do you really think I'm going to buy that? As he'd stab the hero through the chest, killing him. Now here's the problem I have with Stain. Now, how did Stain know people were really that bad? Like, I wish I knew more about Stain's ideology. Like, it's like false heroes should be purged, and I get it. But this is what I'm talking about. Like, think of Ida's brother. Now, I'm pretty sure Ida's brother, like, wasn't doing it for the money. Like, what if he does actually go? I mean, how many people do you think Stain hurt or killed that were actually real heroes who didn't do it because of money? 'Cause I feel like Stain was just killing any hero he saw, and he wasn't even like thinking about his, convictions, like killing heroes who do it for the money or fame. Like, what if there were actual heroes that he killed that weren't doing it for money or fame? You see, at that point, he just contradicts his own convictions. That's it's kind of stupid. But anyway, let's continue. As Bo, you know, would move, as he'd get back, as Goddess Hestia would be there and such, as Goddess Hestia would say, anyway, tomorrow you go in the dungeon, are you excited? As Bo would be like, yeah. And Belle would get, like, ready, and the next day he'd go to the guild, as Belle would need a guild woman, as Belle would ask for an elf because he likes elves, or at least he thought elves were hot. And Belle would get Aina, as Aina would be like, hello, I'll be your guild woman. As there'd be lots of noise, as Bo would ask everything's okay, as Aina would say, yeah, there's just somebody out there killing new heroes, as Bo would say, heroes. I mean, why did they become heroes? As she'd be like, for money, fame. Why else did these people become heroes? She'd say. As Bo would be like, I agree. As Aina would be like, anyway, let's talk about you going to the dungeon. And Aina would actually get Belle, ready and such. And I don't plan on ending this video. I just plan on keep going until my storage runs out. So basically, this gonna end somewhere, and it's just gonna end like that, okay? And I'll just upload this, delete it, and then, record the next part. And like, Bo would go into the dungeon. Now Bo was already like set, and he was ready to start fighting. Now, he'd go into the dungeon as he'd encounter some sort of wolfman. The wolfman would run to Bell as he tried to attack Bell, as Bell would start to dodge, and Bell would kick up, and like Bell would kick the wolfman so hard he would actually crush his bones, killing it, as Bell would start to run through the entire floor levels, and he'd run all the way down to level 6 where he was actually, doing good and such. And he'd get back and such, and he would cash in his magic stones. Aina would say, nice, I got a prodigy here. As Belle would be like, no, I'm not a prodigy. I just trained really hard for my purpose. As Aina would be like, your purpose? As Belle would be like, oh, please don't worry about it. As Aina would be like, okay. And they'd go home, as this would happen, and Belle would buy Goddess Hestia some things, and meanwhile Belle would just keep killing these heroes. And it wasn't until one day that uh basically Belle was fighting this new hero who had the ability to split himself. But the only problem is when he split himself, he also split his level. And this dude was level 5. And the dude would actually split himself 3 times. And Belle, still as a level 2, would actually be strong. And Belle would actually manage to knock one down, and another one would get up. But Belle would eventually kill the man, but would actually get really hurt. And Belle would be thinking in his sleep the next day. Belle would be so weak and tired. And he'd wrap himself up in bandages, as he'd just be thinking, I need a way to stop them, he'd say, as he'd fall asleep. And that night, all Belle was dreaming about was blood. And he'd actually have nightmares that Goddess Hestia would wake him up. As Belle would be like, Goddess Hestia would be like, are you like okay? And Bo would be like, "Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I'm okay." And she'd say, "Well, let's update your status. I didn't get to do it last night." As as she would update Belle's status, as she'd be like, "No way, you have a skill." As Bo would be like, "Really, a skill?" As God's sister would be like, "Yeah, you've only been adventuring for like 2 weeks, but you already have a skill." As Bo would be like, "A skill? What's the skill?" As my sister would be like, "Your skill is called blood curdle. If you lick a monster's, oh, I don't know why I get notifications from Facebook. I don't have Facebook. Personally, I don't have any social media. The only real social media I actually had was like Snapchat, but I didn't really post anything, and I didn't really go on it. There was one time where I was just posting vines though. Anyway, as licking a monster's blood, huh? Bo would think he used this on a human, as Bo would say he's going to the dungeon, as Bo would actually Bo would actually go out, as he'd want to face a person, as he'd end up going, as Bo would say maybe, you know, he should start spreading out and stop killing these new heroes so fast and start killing criminals, as there was this one as Bo would be walking, as he'd run across a secret human trafficking ring, but it was trafficking elves and Amazons. As Bo would be like, "I have to put a stop to this." Bo would get ready as he jumped down, as he'd stab the dude in the back of the head. Bo would pick up his shuriken, throwing it at dudes' necks, and he'd be the boss. Now the boss was a level 3, as he'd pull out his skill, and he'd start chanting earth magic, as Bo's feet would get stuck, and Bo would slice. The man would go up for a final kill, as Bo would slice the man's hand, as the man would back up, as Bo would get blood, as the man would say, "I guess I'll just have to kill you from far." As he'd start to chant, as fire would start to form above Bo, and Bo would be like, "Please work." As he'd lick the blood, and all of a sudden the man would fall. As he'd be like, "What the?" He wouldn't be able to move, as Bo would be like, "It worked." Bo would start shaking and shaking as he'd bust out of the prison. Not the prison, but he'd bust out of the magic stone prison that he was in, as the chant on top of him would go away, and Bo would say, "I guess that was it," as he would stab the man in the stomach, pulling the knife out, as the man would bleed to death, and Bell would cut the the reins, as he'd be like, "You guys are free. Be careful. Like, be careful and look out." He'd say, as they'd be like, "Thank you," and they'd run away, and Bo would say, "My skill works. It's going to be epic." As basically Bell be walking would basically be walking home, as Bell would sense something, and Bell